Hey, Master Coach G here with Keep It Real, hashtag don't play. Yes, I am going solo this week. I'm by myself, but I want to give a shout out and declare blessings over my partner, my friend, my sister, Miss Nolia. We love you. We miss you, Miss Nolia. You know, I always love you being here every time we go live on Keep It Real, hashtag don't play. However, got some good stuff for you this week. I'm trying to tell y'all, just buckle up, Buttercup, because I'm gonna tell you this is gonna be powerful. So, in this week's episode, what we're talking about is trusting God's plan for your life. Okay. Now, I know we've been talking about trusting God, but this week we're talking about trusting God's plan for your life. Okay. Here's the thing: we all face difficulties in life, and that is according to Ecclesiastes 9 and 11. We're all going to go through difficulties. None of us are going to be exempt from that. None of us. We're all going to have them. But in the midst of it, we still have to trust God's plan. That means we have to walk by faith and not by sight. That's what that means. And that's the scripture in Romans 8:28. Now, y'all know that Miss Noya usually come up with the scriptures and expound on those, but I am going to give you the scriptures where you can find this information so that you will be able to go and read it for yourself. Ask God to give you an understanding on how these scriptures apply to your life and how you can apply them so that you will be able to walk by faith and trust God for the plan that He has for your life. So what I want to do is I want to start to share a few biblical characters, because I think that the Bible is a true living testimony of what it is that we are capable of doing. So, with these characters, I'm going to share with you some of the things that they had to trust God for. Okay. So let's start with Deborah. Deborah had to trust God with the plan for her life. Okay. So Deborah was a leader. Deborah was a judge. Deborah was a prophetess. Deborah was a wife. And Deborah was a mother. Okay. And some of us have those same roles. Okay. And wearing all those hats, we have to trust God's plan for our life. She had to trust God in every single role that she played, every single role that she had. And you can find that in Judges 5 and 7. Okay. What about when we're dealing with disappointment? We still have to trust God's plan for our lives. Here's the characters: Zachariah and Elizabeth. Trusting God's plan when they were unfulfilled and disappointed, feeling like they were being denied something that they longed for. But they knew God was faithful. So they had to be faithful. So they remained faithful. In the story, they remained faithful. And guess what? God did exactly what He promised. So in that story, you can read that in Luke 1, 5 through 7, 5, 7 through 17. Okay. Yes. What about when you can't see no way out? You still got to trust God's plan for your life. So now we're going to talk about Moses. So believe me, he had to trust God's plan. He's standing at the Red Sea. He has Pharaoh's army behind him. And he's standing there trying to figure out, what in the world am I going to do now? But he had to trust God's plan. He had to trust God's plan. Did he have a choice? Nope. He had no choice, because he knew Pharaoh was hot on his trail, baby. Hot on his trail. So he had to trust God's plan. Here's the thing. If you trust God to take you in, you got to trust God to bring you out. And that's exactly what Moses did. Read that in Exodus 14, 3 through 18. It's in the book. I'm in the book, y'all. I'm in the book. Because we have to learn how to trust God's plan with our lives. Because sometimes we don't always see. See, God sees. Let me tell you something. Why wouldn't you trust someone who knows everything about everything? Let me say that again. Why wouldn't you trust someone who knows everything about everything? Because in the middle of anything, we still got to trust God for the plan for our lives. We got to trust him. Okay. Now, what about when you in the middle of the fire? What about that? Yeah, I'm talking about them Hebrew boys. Yes, I'm talking about the Hebrew boys. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, baby. Yes, yes. Even though they were in the middle of the fire, they still trusted God. They said, whatever the outcome is, if he take us out, if he save us, if he don't, we gonna trust God. Even in the middle of the fire, we gotta learn how to trust God's plan in the middle of the fire. No matter what the outcome is, we gotta trust his plan. We gotta trust it. You can read that in Daniel 13. No, I'm sorry, Daniel 3:12-17 about the Hebrew boys and how they trusted God for the plan for their lives. They trusted him no matter what. They said, you know what? We are not going to conform. We're going to trust God. That's what we got to say. We got to say, I'm not conforming to the world's ways. I'm going to trust God for the plan for my life. I know the economy is bad. I know gas is high. I know groceries is out of control with the prices. I know. I'm living here too. I know. But we still got to trust God's plan. We got to trust God's plan no matter what. So here's somebody else. Let's talk about Daniel. See, now Daniel was in the lion's den, okay? Daniel was in the lion's den because Daniel wouldn't conform to the ways of the environment that he was living in. He refused to. So they thought by putting him in the lion's den that they were going to persuade him to come over to their side. They kept trying to convince him. They kept trying to talk him into it. I mean, they were doing all kinds of things to get Daniel to come over to their side and do things the way that they did it. Daniel said, nope, can't do it. I can't do it. I have to do this thing God's way. And even in the middle of the lion's den, he still had to trust God. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't have fear. I'm saying that he still had to trust God for his plan. Because no matter what their ordinance were, what their rules were, what their regulations were, what their guidelines were, everything in the land that went against what God said, Daniel said, I can't have no part in it. I can't do it. This is not something that I can go along with because then I am stepping over into idolatry. So I'm going to trust God's plan for my life. And guess what? The lions didn't eat him up. He trusted God for he trusted. When I tell you, now that takes some trust. You laying on the side of the line, getting you some sleep, trusting that them lions ain't gonna eat you up. That they're not gonna have you for dinner. You gotta trust that. I mean, that's really putting trust in God. That's really putting trust in God. And I'm just saying that, we gotta trust God just like that. We got to trust God. We got to say, I'm not conforming to the ways of the world. I am going to trust God for the plan for my life because he said, I know the plans that I have for you. That's in Jeremiah. I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and to be in good health. So God already knows the plan. We got to trust that his plan is better than our plan. I heard people say, well, I got this plan and I just need God to line up with my plan. Boo, boo, boo. Hold the phone. No, and no. No, what needs to happen is you need to align yourself. We need to align ourselves with God's plan for our lives. God don't need to line up with what we got going on, honey. We need to line up with his plan. Because guess what? Again, why wouldn't you trust someone who knows everything? Why wouldn't you? So go to the book of Daniel. Read the book of Daniel. Now, here's someone else that I want to talk about. Hmm. When you are lonely, so let's say that that you lost a loved one, or a child, and who I want to talk about now is Naomi and Ruth. Okay. When you're going through being lonely, that's a hard time for some people. We just celebrated Mother's Day this past weekend, and not everybody has their mother. So it wasn't a good time for them. So when you're lonely, when you're longing for someone, and that's what Naomi was going through. She lost her husband and her son. She felt empty and alone. But she knew she had to trust God, even though she questioned God's love for her, because, and it was human. It's a human reaction. It's like, God, why would you take my child? Why would you take my husband? I get it. I've never experienced, but I get it. So yes, you're going to question God. She questioned God's love for her because of the loss of her husband and her son. But she still had to trust God's plan for her life. And guess what? Naomi had Ruth. So the loneliness wasn't as bad. Ruth clinged to Naomi. That was her daughter-in-law. Ruth was her daughter-in-law. She said, my God will become your God. Your God will become my God. Wherever you go, I will go. So that so Naomi wouldn't continue to experience the loneliness, not having anyone. So her daughter-in-law, which was close to her son, gave her some comfort. So even in loneliness, we still got to trust God's plan. Read the book of Ruth, start with the first chapter and read 19 through 22. That will definitely tell you more about the story about Ruth and Naomi. Okay, this is the last character right here. This is a good one. What about when we mess up? What about that? Because guess what? We all do. God say go right, guess what we do? We go left. God say do this, we do that. God say go here, we go there. What about when we mess up? Even after we realize, when we come back to ourselves and we realize, we still got to trust God's plan for our lives. We got to trust that God, I know you're going to forgive me, but going forward, I got to trust your plan. I can't keep doing this and that. I just can't keep doing it. So here's who we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about Jacob. Yeah, Jacob. Jacob was called the trickster, okay? Jacob stole his brother's birthright. He deceived his father. He was a liar. He was a cheater. But guess what? When he came to himself, he realized that he had to turn to God. That was not an easy decision for a trickster. That wasn't an easy decision for a liar and a deceiver. That wasn't easy for him. And let me tell you why it wasn't easy, because he wrestled with that angel. He wrestled with that angel all night. That's what the Bible say. The Bible said he wrestled with that angel all night until he finally submitted and said, God, I got to trust you. And when he did that, God changed his whole entire life. God changed his name from Jacob. He says, you are no longer Jacob. You are no longer a trickster. You are no longer a liar. You are no longer a deceiver. You are called Israel. Israel. That was a whole nother level for him. So he had to trust God in that situation and believe that no matter what, he messed up. Yes. Yes, he lied. Yes, he cheated. Yes, he deceived. Yes, he did all that. But look at what God did, even in the midst of all that mess, even in the middle of our mess up, we still got to trust God's plan. We got to trust his plan, y'all. We got to trust it. We got to trust it no matter what. No matter what. Now, listen, this was short, sweet, and to the point. All I'm saying is trust God's plan for your life. Trust the one who knows everything about everything. He is the one that knows everything about you. He said in Jeremiah, he knew you before you was formed in your mother's womb. So if he knew you before you was formed in your mother's womb, don't you think he know you? He knows everything about you. So you got to trust that because he knows everything about you, that his plan is perfect for your life. So we got to be obedient and do what God say do. We got to do that, because that is how we see and walk in the benefits of trusting God, because he's going to do what he say. God is going to do. He's going to fulfill his word. He said his word will not return to him void. It will not. So if we trust his plan, we got to know whatever God shared with you about your life, honey, you better believe it and hold on to it. I mean, hold on to it. Hold on to it. Don't let go of it, because he said his word will not return unto him void. So whatever he spoke in your life, believe it. Believe it and trust it, because he knows everything about everything. Hey, this is Master Coach G with Keep It Real, #don't play. Want to give another shout out to Miss Noya. We love you. We miss you. Can't wait for you to come back. And we will see you next week, y'all. We love y'all. Peace out.